Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And a splendid morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And this morning we've got a very important guest. Let's put it that way. An entrepreneur who's credited with bringing perhaps Sri Lanka's, at the time, best known international brand into the country. And he's here to discuss the effects of the repeal of the Appropriation Act brought in under the previous government. And he's here this morning with us. We'll be joining him shortly. In the meantime, Newsfirst was saddened to note the passing of an retired central bank regulator and a prolific author, Mrs. Joan Munasinghe. Mrs. Munasinghe was a vociferous activist when it came to the unbearably high interest rates, especially in the microfinance industry. And she was all for responsible lending, and she wrote several articles on the subject, and she made a lasting contribution to the Sultanate of Brunei, where she worked for a period of 5 years in a contract and introduced a regulatory arm of their version of the central bank. Joan Munasinghe will for long be remembered, fondly remembered, for her contribution to the people of Sri Lanka. And this morning, here we are, we have our guest, Mr. Cornel Perera, sometimes known as Cornel Hilton Perera. Very good morning to you, Mr. Perera.
Good morning.
Is that really your middle name? Did your daddy call you Hilton?
No.
No, he didn't.
But I have a better name.
Right.
Cornell, like Cornell University in USA.
I see.
Of which I'm the only lifetime member here in Sri Lanka.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. Wonderful.
Hotel school.
Wonderful. Now, Mr. Cornel Perera, you're here because we noticed that our Parliament has repealed the expropriation bill, or the Act. And this means, what does it mean actually? Does it mean that the people who ran it previously, or any of these assets previously, that the ownership will revert to them automatically, or is there some form of glitch?
That we don't know, because if it is straight, legal and proper, yes, and if it was for the benefit of the country, yeah, this is something that should have happened soon after the regime change. The last regime.
Why? Because it denotes everything correct about transparency?
No, this is the way the government should have been run soon after the regime change. Because the regime change, one of the reasons the regime was changed, people voted against, yeah, was because the foreigners stopped investing, looking at big things since then, except there was an opportunity to borrow big money. Against, yes.
I see.
Not so favorable to the people of the country, and certainly not for the economy of the country. For the economy to move forward, the two most important things, even the big countries, Russia, the United States, China, everybody is looking forward to FDIs first, and the second is the tourism industry. The tourism industry runs many places. London city is run on tourism. The Chinese government, even today, they are all interested in FDIs. Russia is interested in FDIs. USA is on FDIs. Most Western countries, Asian, they all want FDIs and tourism. These two things must go together for the economy to get going.
So what you're saying is that this should have been done much earlier in the interest of transparency, in the interest of sending the right message to the world.
For investors.
For investors who may have been considering Sri Lanka.
This was at that time called the draconian thing.
It was called draconian.
Yeah,
okay.
Because for there was no chance whatsoever for free direct investments to come into the country. And the foreigners kept saying, hey, if they take away local business where you have invested, what about us foreigners? We borrow
What
money
chance do we have?
What do we have?
Right.
And that's why the economy has been dead. But even soon after the regime change, this was not rescinded, the Expropriation Act, because the country's economy could have moved forward so intensely if they had only rescinded this one act. And that has been very ugly, very bad, ununderstandable why this wasn't done.
Unforgivable, really.
Unforgivable.
A waste of an opportunity.
Long years of waste, 5, 6 years.
4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Right. Now what next then, Mr. Perera? What next?
What next is they should be handed over to the previous owners.
Yeah.
And here I make one exception.
Yeah.
Hilton was not built by the state. It was built private sector from scratch after the Black July 83. Nobody was there to take the steps we took, and building the hotel, we recouped the country. People had written off Sri Lanka.
Right.
The Black July. Nobody can deny that.
I think everybody acknowledges that you were at your marvelous best when you managed to hold on to those Japanese investors and the contractors for the project.
And the Americans too.
And the Americans, so the owners of the brand name.
Yes.
And it was important at the time for Sri Lanka because we needed a international brand name on the industry, for the industry.
And for the economy.
And for the economy. Now, but Mr. Cornel Perera, what next now? Now that this bill has been, the act has been repealed,
and
have they been in touch with you and said, can you come and take over the keys?
No, I'm waiting for that.
Right.
But whether they have something else in between, because it says it has to go to the finance ministry.
Yeah.
And they have, very difficult to understand, but they should have returned it subject to whatever commitments these companies had towards the government or anybody else.
Right.
But so far, I haven't heard anything. I'm hoping that I won't have to again go to court to get this done.
But your project, or this whole story, the saga of the hotel, has been one, I think somewhere, somebody referred to it as being engulfed in an avalanche of legal cases.
Yes.
Right now, I don't want to go into the avalanche of legal cases because we'll need the entire day then.
No, yes.
Right, so...
There was no necessity for any case whatsoever.
Right, perhaps frivolous litigation, perhaps litigation designed to cause maximum discomfort and to stymie progress. It certainly did that to you.
Yes.
But, Mr. Perera, the opposition in this country today, during this debate, they raise concern that the repeal of the Expropriation Act was to benefit one senior member of the United National Party.
Well, that was on in Parliament, and it was on television.
Yes. And do you feel yourself that this whole business is, as far as everybody else is concerned, is a facade, but in terms of that one person, that this whole business was done just to benefit the one person?
Well, this goes back to 2011, when all these companies were taken over in one day through an act of Parliament.
Yeah.
And since then, nothing has happened. Long time.
Yeah.
I sent my letter to the then government in 2000 very clearly. The yen loan and the interest thereon my company paid. The owning company of Hilton is HDL.
Yeah.
we settled in full, and I've said that in court. I never drew 1 cent because I had 56%, and with the Japanese I would have got 83%.
Right.
And what do you do if you are a businessman or a simple person who wants to do a little kade? You try to make all the money, not expend on yourself. If I had spent money.
Right. So what I'm gathering here is you say that there should never have been an avalanche of litigation, and that. So what happened? Do you think it? Do you feel slighted? Do you take umbrage with the government at the time of the day, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, the SLFP, under President Kumaratunga? Do you? Is that where your trouble started?
My trouble started there by the government then using somebody who misled the head of government and the public.
Yes. Now I want to say this to you, Mr. Perera. As an entrepreneur, you say this happened in 94, from the start of 94.
It started in 94.
It started in 94. We're looking at about 25 years later, and it looks like nothing really has changed, because the government in 2011 decided to take it all back on the basis that various state assets that had been privatized were not performing according to expectation, according to plan, and again we have another government that has repealed that. So this is going like a yo-yo. Yes. So is that why, in your entrepreneurial mind, is that why Sri Lanka's FDI can never go beyond a point?
Well, yes, that was the main reason.
This instability of policy is what I'm saying.
In 2011, when I wrote to the government very clearly that I have settled the debts. It must revert to me by an agreement. We have a sacrosanct agreement where I could have gone for international arbitration. I was advised by the top American lawyers, Bill Gates' father's law firm, that you have a very easy case, but even if you win this, there is no point. The then government would never have honored it. And so this you can go only once. So I didn't go for international arbitration, where provision was made in our Hilton contract. HDL contract was very well covered.
Now, Mr. Perera, I want to ask you, in the wider, if you can take your mind off only HDL, and if you can take your mind to the greater picture.
Yes.
What is the greater picture here?
The greater picture is
about the repeal of this act.
The repeal of this act sends the best message this country could have sent in the last 15, 20 years.
That?
Oh, yes.
That? What?
Well, now we don't have an expropriation act.
Right.
Can you quote one other country, even in our neighborhood, where they have this? We are way ahead. When we started, we opened the economy. President Jawad did it in 78.
Yeah.
But in our neighborhood, is there another country that had this expropriation act? This was something that was done overnight by passing this bill in Parliament in 24 hours. Today, my wife, we were all on the board. Tomorrow, we couldn't step into the hotel.
Right. So what you're saying is that this is important, because it's an important message to potential investors and investors already here to hang on, that Sri Lanka is, after all, open for real business.
Yeah, we can say Sri Lanka's economy is born again. Every party that governed kept this on. This is the first time a clear message is being sent. The tourists still came. They took chances. And Sri Lankans are resilient, you know that, and they just didn't give up after that. After the July thing.
Yeah.
They went forward. Then came this bombshell.
Oh, well, we know about July.
Yes.
Because this group knows all about that. We were burnt to the
yes,
ground.
I remember.
We were burnt to the ground, and there was obviously various other elements in this, perhaps born of jealousy and so on. But our chairman and his board decided within 2 weeks of that incident to rebuild. And boy, haven't they rebuilt it well. That's what I can say.
I think the country knows that very well. Country is fully aware of that. And that kind of leadership given with resilience, coming back, not surrendering, was good for the country. But now...
Yes, sorry, go on.
Let's look at the greater picture. After so long, this is the first and only positive message that has really gone to the investors. There are many people who like to invest in this country. Anybody in business would tell you that. They are ready to invest. They like the country. You can't have another place better than this. Every country has the same amount of risks that we had.
Right.
But the people are friendly. People work hard. If they are looked after, they are industrious, they are keen. They want to get ahead in life. Because from 78, after the 77 era, they saw the open market. They saw the opportunities. And since then, their mindset has developed in that same direction, except that we had a regime we discuss now, and that regime we changed. Incidentally, it was with Venerable Sobita in front and me behind. The two of us changed that last regime.
Well, certainly Sri Lanka as a whole misses the late Venerable Sobita Tera, who's credited with having been the catalyst for the change.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you've played your own role in the background as you have over several years, especially when it came to what are your Japanese people saying now? I know they've been settled and they probably don't care,
yes,
but from a wider perspective, and there are two corporates. I wonder whether you've had any feedback from them, so that we know a real feedback from somebody who was affected by all this business.
I haven't had any yet, but I know I went to Tokyo at 17 years from here on a scholarship thanks to President Jayawardena. I think they will all feel, oh, the JR era has come again. If this is implemented openly and correctly and legally, without harassing the people whose properties were taken over, now Parliament has passed it. It must go and go fast without the Ministry of Finance or some other institution holding on to it. Or I say very clearly, this message that has come out where the opposition lost. Actually, I watched the program in Parliament.
Yeah.
The opposition wasn't really, they only picked out on one or two people.
Yes, but isn't it also true that all these matters be examined instead of a blanket examination, that all these 37 issues, these 37 corporates that were taken away, isn't it best if each and every one of them was examined on a case-by-case basis?
There was no examination.
I don't mean in your case. It's only one. It's only you. But I'm talking about the others.
I can tell you, without hesitation, that the main reason was they wanted to get the Hilton, and there was
that was then.
Yes.
But then why? Then in that case, if it's conjecture, why was this bill repealed then? Was it to give back the Hilton, or was it to give back one of those other 36 businesses?
I don't want to comment on that, but
right.
This is the first clear message that has gone to the local investors, foreigners, everybody who's been waiting to come are ready to come. First message in the last so many years. Come, invest, free country, friendly country, resilience, all that they know.
Yeah.
But the only hitch was this just one hitch. that the state can take, even the local peoples, then as a foreign investor, would you take that chance? You know, foreigners, investors are not fools. They have been networking. They all say, discuss each other. They say, Cornel, they all network. We know that risk is still on. And I must say, the opposition, even the JVP, did not oppose so much this in principle. They didn't. They know also that unless the economy moves forward, there is no country. This could have become, the way it was going, a failed state. The economy to move, Mr. Faraz, anywhere in the world, free FDIs, you know that.
Yeah.
Number two is tourism. The largest economies, USA, China, all of them, they need tourism and FDIs. China, for example, has been a big factory for others. But who are the others? They are also FDIs.
But in these other countries where FDI is a big ticket item and tourism is a big ticket item, in all these countries, they don't have things like Volkswagen.
Volkswagen they don't have, but more than that, they don't have...
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they don't have expropriation.
Okay.
That is a euphemism, nice word, sounds big, Expropriation Act, nationalizing. State can nationalize any investor's property, ongoing business, whether it's local or foreign. Why they refuse to understand, and now with this clear message coming in support of this, no objection, no serious except for two sugar properties, JVP, everybody, there was no envy, there was no anger. They were not really, because they know without whatever they say, without investors coming, this 225 club is going to die. They know that.
And is that why one of these is being handed over? They mentioned it in Parliament, and they said that they claimed that this is because they wanted to hand it back to a one-time UNP financier.
Oh, they have to hand it back to everybody because the way it was taken was, no, were they performing well or not? No, these companies were green. That was the only reason.
That's not entirely true, though.
No, because, it was green. 37.
Because if you look at the sugar company, when it was privatized originally, the thinking of the government was super, because they wanted a local firm to produce sugar. Okay. So we didn't have to import as much as we did. When you examine those figures, during the period of that particular company was run by Mr. Dagamage's interests, the profitability was perhaps not as much as the state thought. But if you looked at the product, sugar, they were not manufacturing as much sugar as it was envisaged and that they themselves proposed. Instead, they were producing other things, other byproducts.
I don't know who...
That was to do with alcohol and so on.
With Reverend Sobita's word all the time was ethanol, ethanol, ethanol.
Well,
that's one of the things he didn't want to happen in this country. But not everybody was same.
And also, if we examine the initial privatization of that sugar company, if we examine that, there it was for all to see. The claim then, and it has never been refuted or it has not been addressed properly, and that is that the amount of money that was paid, that the company, when it was being privatized, it was seriously undervalued, that they used the valuation of a private firm as opposed to a government person, and that the assets were actually greater than the amount that the government received at the time. It was once described as the deal of the century for those people. The TEC at the time, comprising 5 people, 3 of them were political appointees who knew jack about the sugar trade. and manufactured that. There were only 2 proper government service members in that original TEC. And now we're coming literally full circle, Mr. Perera. The country is coming full circle because now it is the same kind of government that has now repealed that act. So what I'm trying to say is, it's all politics.
Yes, that I agree 1,200%. It was all politics. Political agendas have stymied this country's economic growth. Nobody can deny that. And what the people are looking for is economy, economy, economy.
Mr. Perera, as you may know, on our program, viewers send in their questions. I have had several this morning, and but there's one that I feel that I really must ask you. Yes. But you need, because you need to keep your answer short, though, unfortunately, running out of time. How much money did Mr. Cornel Perera and his own company invest in this project for you to retain a majority shareholding?
I invested
at the time,
at that beginning itself,
yeah,
$2 million US, which was big officially.
Yeah.
And the rest was all mine and mine alone. The government did not invest a cent.
So the initial $2 million
government did not have one share, although the 94 government said, aren't we? Not a single share when we started. In 9 or 10 years after that, I gave Mr. Paskaralingam 8% because
he was then the Treasury Secretary.
Treasury Secretary. He wanted to switch the loan to a dollar loan because there was volatile appreciation of the yen.
But that was good thinking.
Oh, it was very good. Good thing, but I didn't want the government to have too many shares, and I said, I'll give you these shares, which was a good deal for the government to have at least 8% of the Hilton Hotel owning company. And that was the only money. If anybody can stand up and say, I put this money, or the UNP government say, we put so much, nothing. They put zero.
They put zero.
All mine, and my influence with the Japanese, and of course, because the Japanese treated President Jayawarden as Kamisama, God, God, God.
Right.
And they wanted this, and President Jayawarden was keen to get a brand name into the country, which was very sensible. He was in the tour. But if anybody can stand up and say, I put 100 rupees, the poor shareholders, they did put some monies, but they enjoyed returns because the shares shot up to 200 something. And
very quickly, very quickly, because this is another question, but very quickly, because we need to finish now.
Yes.
During this debate, somebody raised the question that there was one floor missing.
Yes.
What do you say to that?
I brought this to show you. We have.
I'm afraid that I don't want you to open that.
If one floor or half a floor, or even if one room was missing, why they go through all this so many years? Then the violation of the guarantee, they could have had it. This is maybe my ex-employee who jumped from here the most. I think I won't mention the name, but country Dosit, who is doing this. He is a psychopath. He's
well, okay. Well, I think we can understand your feelings about that one.
Someone I employed.
So basically, just yes or no, is there a flow missing?
Oh, come on, don't ask me that. You look a fool when you... If a floor... I said if a room was missing, this would have been the government's at that time.
So I take your answer is no. There's absolutely no flows missing.
No flows, not a... You must must not disrespect the Japanese government.
Indeed.
The Japanese government has given the loan. The Sri Lanka government has given a guarantee for the loan. You think they were all idiots in the Sri Lanka government? If one room was missing, it was theirs.
It sounds. I take your point.
This is my sadistic psychopath ex-employee.
Cornel Perera, Thank you ever so much for being on the program, for sharing your story of
Mine is not a story, mine is all facts.
Indeed.
Undeniable facts.
Facts.
Once a share certificate is issued, whether it's drug money, foul money, it is issued and then you are the owner. Otherwise,
Cornel Perera, extraordinary entrepreneur that you are. Thank you ever so much, and I do hope that your travels will finish at least now. And that's the way it was on Newsline. Thank you very much for watching us, and wish you a wonderful week ahead, safe one, and of course, God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.